Dorothy Heathcote teaches drama, but it's nothing to do with wearing leotards or pretending to be a tree. Mrs. Heathcote uses drama as a teaching medium, a way of stimulating a child's mind to richer levels of learning. Over the past 30 years, this highly individual style of teaching has earned her a worldwide reputation from her base at Newcastle University. A lesson with Dorothy Heathcote is fulfilling and fun.
I chose to run, first of all, a shoe factory, a boot factory, because of the three interests the children told me about when I met them in school. And I asked them the question, what's it like being a northerner? And out of this came these three worries: the microchip, the loss of jobs, the interest in fashion and the interest in history. But by far the worry about the microchip and unemployment as a result, I think, was in the ascendancy.
The starting point for Dorothy Heathcote's shoe factory was here, at Broadwood Junior School in Newcastle, where last October Mrs. Heathcote met the 14 children who would help her make this series. To prepare for it, the 10-year-olds spent the Christmas term studying footwear and visiting local craftsmen. Then, with nobody knowing quite what to expect, the children met Dorothy Heathcote again, this time for an introductory session in their television classroom.
Hello. Come on in.
In you go.
It's a while since we met, isn't it? Right, let's all gather round here a minute. I've been making my desk ready. Oh, let's put those on there. And then I've sort of got this ready. Oh, good, you've brought your cups. Fine. Lovely. I should just put them on that table there, then we can have a good look at them. You've remembered everything, haven't you? Right, do you want to have a look at the studio cameras just to see how cameras look? Well, you know, the cameramen will shake hands with you if you want to say hello. You've got to watch you don't trip over cables. Would you like to just go and have a look round and see, and then we can get sort of settled, and then they can get on with their work and we'll get on with ours. They're sort of like, I find them like sort of big animals in the room, gliding quietly about. And then when you've met everybody, we'll set to. Because we've an awful lot to do this morning.
In this introductory session, recorded before the series proper, the children chose their own layout for the factory. There was a lot of running around and moving furniture and pinning up pictures.
Into our factory with shoes and that lying about and everything looking like it's getting done. Right.
Then, to fit their old established firm with its high-class reputation, the children chose a name: Blackley and Brodie, makers of fine leather.
So we really need one table at least that has a sewing machine on. Yes, yes. Well, you only need imagine the machine, and the machine comes into your mind, doesn't it? So it'll be a machine then. So we don't need a great sewing machine, because you'd have that between your ears, wouldn't you, thinking it? Right. In fact, everything will be thought, won't it? Because when you're working on a boot, you haven't got a boot. You just have the feeling of working in a factory, so we'll have the boot when we need it. So if I want to pick a boot up and polish it, I've got it, haven't I? And you've got the same, because it's there behind your eyes.
The children are taking their first step into the imagination, the starting point for any good drama. They've learned something about the skills of the real shoemaker. Now, bit by bit, the whole process has to move into the mind. And Dorothy Heathcote demands something else in this introductory session: that the workers accept her not just as their teacher, but as the factory manager as well, a role she will adopt frequently to further the action of this unscripted and unpredictable drama.
Who's doing that invalid boot that was ordered for, I don't know it was a special order. Yes. Have you finished those invalid boots? No. What are you doing with that last? Well, it's no good wrapping it up, love. We want to get some leather cut out. And hey, just a minute, look at that. Scratches at work. Now, this is not going to be passed. You've done a lovely job on the finishing, but we're going to have to watch this. Will you be sure you give them a good buffing up? Right? And you women, check your fingernails. We can't do with scratches on leather. You'd better get a bit of dye on that. And, you know, I'm not having things sent out of this factory that are not perfect.
Have you got
Yeah.
Have you got a tape measure?
Tape measure? Anybody got a tape measure in your drawer?
Here, suddenly, the idea of imagining works. Dorothy gives a clue by opening an imaginary drawer.
Have a look.
Then watch.
Is it a long one you need?
Yes. Clip to measure them.
Thanks, there you are. People, can I just stop and have a word? Can I just stop? When you're working, you'll find that the factory in your head is more use than the bits and pieces on the table. What the bits and pieces on the table do is look like to somebody watching. They can see straight away, oh, that's a leather works. But actually, the best shoes, you know, are these. Do you see what I mean? So that all you really need for your work are what's in your mind about shoes. If you want a big machine, you only need have it in your head and you've got it. I have to start from where they're at. But I've got certain educational goals I would like to develop, you see. And one of the first is, if we're dealing with the world of work, as we are, even though we've created a factory that really doesn't exist, we've created something that could exist. Because there's this funny, delicate line between inventing the world, because we're making it, and then checking it for its authenticity.
The dye track up there, and the dye runs down into the printing block.
One of the problems will be, however, to get them from this interesting clay bridge that we've got now, because it is a very nice factory. But they don't really know what work is like. And the emphasis in the first session then will be on it's got to feel authentic. And so it will have a fairly slow, static beginning for the children. No dashing about and having all these fancy orders. I shall lay out the work for the day, very much as a teacher might, who lays out so many maths and so much English and so much and so on. And so I'm going to take the work of a factory, lay out the jobs, and divide it into different kinds of skills. But what I'd like the children to do is begin to realise that feet can ache. And you may not always feel like going on with this. And you can't always just stop and rush for the boss. And so I would like to establish a fairly slow, steady, rather grinding day, a dull day, a November day, a Monday. Come on in then. Morning. Morning. Had a nice weekend?
Yes.
Good. Right. I've been checking over these special jobs, and I've done you out a job card because these are obviously important enough to have everything recorded. Who's dealing with that set of invalid boots? You got started on the design. Good. Well, you'll see there's a job description and any problems that arise. That's your work for the day then, Sarah. Can you just get yourself settled down and get stitching or whatever needs doing? You'll find the chairs, the cleaners put them over there, you know what she's like. Who's dealing with that?
As Sarah goes off to start on her invalid boots, the factory manager issues the rest of the day's work. To stretch the children's imagination, she's included leather work other than just shoes. A money belt for a bank cashier to wear.
Which part are you stitching now?
A camel bag for an explorer in the desert.
Oh, right. You might need some strong cowhide for that.
3 sets of elephant shoes for a film about Hannibal crossing the Alps.
Fit that charger in that war museum. Oh, good.
A dog sleigh harness for a team of huskies in the Antarctic.
Have you got any of the sewing?
And a harness for a steeplejack.
No, right.
And though each child has come prepared with a working drawing of his or her own task, its manufacture during the lesson will open up vast areas of learning as
When you
teacher and
design
students
the boots, get
make the
started
drama
like,
work
like
together.
that. come to the stores with me and I'll give you the leather you need. Right. Have you got the key? Thanks. Now then. You see, there's every thickness from the very, very thick down there to the very, very finest up there. Now, it's that sort of leather we need. Do you see what I mean? You need those other eyes. You know? The eyes of the mind. Right. And it'll be the eyes of the mind that we need all day today. Because we're working really carefully at making shoes. No more long. How long did you want?
Oh, to the attic again.
32 metres.
Unless I use skill.
Is this for the dog sleigh harness? Can you machine it together?
I have it. It can't be enough because there's only 6 metre bits.
Well, I think you'd better just get onto the wholesaler and order what you think you need. What width of strapping are you doing for the dogs? A 3-inch strap.
3 inch for that main bit. and
Yes,
for those
3
bits
inch for the chest harnesses.
three-
How long are you making the actual, reins for the team driver?
Well,
I mean, not how long, how wide? 3 inch or?
no, they're just 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
It doesn't even that thick, but it's the strong.
No, I should think they'd be
It's
strong.
really strong.
I mean, really, what you'd use for a horse would be strong enough, maybe, for a dog
And
team.
that's the really strong kind of leather as well.
Yes. You mean these are going to be patterned?
Yeah.
Yes. But when he's wearing it, it won't look like a money belt, will it? Otherwise, they'll rob him. Ah, it's just going to be embossed. Are you going to think of any colour? I mean, is it going to look like a cowboy belt?
It's just going to be like a normal belt.
But in fact, it can contain a lot of money. Yes, yes. You'll have to get your dimension. How big's a pound note? Does anybody know how big a pound note is? Yeah, you're going to have to get your pound note dimensions really accurate, aren't you? I'll see if I've got a pound note in my purse and then we'll check that.
Are these the size of the shoes okay?
Well, that feels all right to me. This is for the invalid. Well, that feels nice and flexible, doesn't it? Yes. Well, now, you better measure it. You'll need a micrometer, won't you, to check exactly how thick it is. Mark it out and put on your job sheet just what thickness you're using. Any limited price? I think you better find get all his prices from his best to his not so good. I think for this dog team we'd better have the best. But tell him what it's for and then he could make a judge as well as us.
Is this Cameron's bag all right?
Yes. Now you've got it cut out, have you? Yes. No, I think it'll need hand stitching. I think this is going to have to be hand stitched. You've got the sort of two pieces together. Now what we need is to get these pockets on, isn't it? Are you ready for sewing on your pockets? 3 millimetres. You've done it on the micrometer, have you? Right. Yeah, put it on your job sheet. Have you not got a job sheet for that yet? I'll see you get one in a minute. Yes, now, you've got this, which bit have you stitched? This part here? Right. Now we better get all these pockets cut out and get them put on. And when you've cut them out, lay them on and I'll come and have a look at them and we'll fit the water bottle in and some ammunition and such. Does anybody know where I could hire a bit of ammunition or something to test it for size?
Johnson's down the road there, they sell quite good guns and I'll go and phone them.
Well, he can deal with it. He's dealing with the camel bag. I think we've got to check the size of things, don't you? But they're not going to like it if you just phone up for a gun and ammunition. I think you better go down and explain. Or maybe take the saddlebag down and the cutout. What do you think? Have they said how big this fella is that has to travel on public transport with money?
No.
Well, look, I'll tell you what. Ring Barclays Bank and ask them what size of belt. I suppose we could work it out. Does anybody know what's a good average size for a grown man to have a belt? You know, for this money belt for Barclays Courier. 28 inches waist.
The cutting machine for
What?
cutting? Like,
No, I'll see to that. Well, cut it by hand. 32. What's your waist sizes?
My dad's the 40.
Your dad's waist a 40. Well, then we need at least a 40. I mean, is he a good average man size? Well, then I think make it 48 or something like that till we can check. Is it a revolver they need in the desert? I mean, they'd only really need to shoot their dinner, wouldn't they, really, I suppose? I don't know whether you use revolvers for shooting your dinner or what. Does anybody know? Does anybody know what sort of guns you use for hunting your meal? You know, this is desert. This is desert travel, a double-barreled shotgun. Well, that's more than 7 inches long, isn't it?
That's about 10 inches.
Well, maybe we're just making a slot for the thing and it sticks out at the back, maybe, so you wouldn't hand-stitch across there. As long as that's wide enough for the shotgun stock. We're not taking shortcuts on invalid boots. Get your needle out, get your specs on if you need them, and get stitching. People, can I just stop you a minute? We're now getting to the stage where the designing we've done that can be done on paper so that you can put it outside of your head onto the tables has to now be got into the mind. So can you just find a chair at your workbench for a minute with whatever you're dealing with, and we'll just have a little working out this business of the mind. I'll bring my chair because I think I need a chair for this as well. Supposing you tell me something difficult to sew in leather, you know, like I might be doing a job. Invent a job for me like I invented jobs for you. Do you think of anything that's really difficult? Yes. Heavy army boots, right. So we'll suppose I've done my heavy army boot design just like you've done your heavy leather boots and designs for camels and dog harness. So I know now in my mind what it is I have to do. And a lot of you know exactly how it's going to be joined up because, of course, you've designed it carefully and properly, haven't you? So now I can sit back and I can say, well, if I'm going to make the lace holes first for my heavy army boot, what sort of a punch will I need? Now, of course, I haven't got a table like you have, so I'll have to put it down, and I might do some measuring so that I get it right. But all this is now in my mind. It's not on the paper. It's on the real leather in my mind. Do you see what I mean? So I'm going to make the holes, you see, and I'll know if it's very difficult, and I won't rush anything. And then when I've made the boots, the holes, you see, I might be ready then for stitching that bit to another bit. So then it's a case of finding the thread in my mind, isn't it? And I'm sure I wouldn't be able to break that heavy sewing thread for leather, would I? No. So I might have a cutter, you see, at the side. And then I'd have a look at all my needles and pick out, well, now, this is the best, quite a thick cowhide, I would think, for army boots, wouldn't you? So I want my cowhide needle, and then I can thread it, and then I can pick it up, and I can start sewing. And I can't hurry it, because every stitch has to hold. Remember, this is Blackley and Broadine boots. Do you see? Now, what I'd like you to do now is get to this second stage, where all this designing now comes into the mind, and we become makers of shoes and boots and dog harness and camel bags and elephant shoes, and we do the work. If I have preconceived ideas about what should be in their minds, I think I'm neglecting my job as a teacher. However, I would also be neglecting my job as a teacher if I didn't have preconceived ideas about what learning is possible in this work that they do. The learning that already not only has been possible out of the work they've already prepared, but the potential in what they have prepared is quite enormous. The filling out of forms here in technical language, not lay language, but technical language, you know, how many stitches to the inch, what size of wax thread, and so on. Hours per job needs to be filled out in shoeman's language, you know. The curriculum just opens out because, of course, we have this context. So we've sewn this with number 12, eh? Right. You sew the buckle on at that end. I'll hold it. Bend the leather over the buckle. You've got to sort of see it in your mind, haven't you? Thread it through this way, and I'll bend it up for you, and you hold the two together. Now, I think you're going to need a punch, you know, to make holes big enough, don't you? It's so thick.
I've cut them all out, stitched on the thingies.
Yeah, this is the gun holder, is it?
Yeah. I've stitched all the rest onto there. It's finished now.
Yes, well, now what you're doing is you're finishing before you've really done it. You're trying to finish the bag, aren't you? Well, in this sort of stitching, we're not trying to finish, we're trying to make it perfect, you see. So let's suppose you've stitched on the gun holder, right? Now take one thing to stitch, and it's going to take a long time, so that in your head, you really sew it, you know, because people tend to hurry everything. I think you probably should do backstitch. What do you think? Can you do backstitch?
No.
Can anybody do backstitch? Right, Samantha, can you just show Tracy how to do backstitch? Because she'll have to do it with that number of stitches. That's just the drawing. She's got the belt on her bench. Those are coming on very nicely. What number needle are you sewing with?
Well, like that. Up through them. Up through there, and back down. No, up through the second one, rather. Back down the first one. Then up through the third, back down the second. Up through the fourth, back down the third. Up down the fifth, back up out of the fifth hole, down the fourth. Right in now.
Now, can I just interrupt you all a minute? What we're going to do next, I know you still have an accident book thing to do. What we're going to do now is, if you don't mind, we're going to make a rule that nobody moves from their chair, right? And everybody is working on the particular job they're doing now. And we're going to let a great silence develop as everybody concentrates on doing the job according to the traditions of Blackley and Broadine, right? And we all know what they are, don't we? The rule is nobody need move from their chair because they've got everything that they need for their job. And you don't need to ask me anything. Just do your work according to your own expertise. Do what you think. So with that real clear imagination. You know, it's when your mind can wander on things because you're such an expert. And if people looked through the window, they'd say, look at all those cobblers all sewing like that and mending things and doing it right. By they do look busy in that factory. And they won't know what's going on in your mind, really. I'm always interested in trying to reverse the power between the power of the teacher to tell and the power of the children to tell. So first I was looking for something they could be expert at that none of us knew a great deal about. I must still manage the thing because I'm paid to manage in the classroom. So I became the manager. And when we look at how I'm managing, the children basically are telling me what they want. and what they need and what we haven't got, then they're not coming to me asking me what they shall do next. So to that extent, I was looking for a factory of some kind. I chose to run, first of all, a shoe factory, a boot factory, because of the three interests the children told me about when I met them in school. And I asked them the question, what's it like being a northerner? And out of this came these three worries: the microchip, the loss of jobs, the interest in fashion, and the interest in history. But by far, the worry about the microchip and unemployment as a result, I think, was in the ascendancy. So, as a planning teacher concerned with curriculum work, I said to myself, how can I positively look at work problems? I'm not going to have people in my factory redundant. If there's real redundancy, we certainly do not need to dramatise it. But I thought it might be helpful if together we could worry about it, because if they are worrying about it, it's better that they can talk about this worry. So I was casting about what will give me a craft that could have kept up with the times, so that they can have something of the history of fashion in it and so on. What could get me into that area that the work you do really does help in society? And what factory could I have where they'll never run out of the need of it? Because we will, I think, always need footwear. But then you'd realise that in today's lesson, we actually didn't do much about shoes, because I'm leading up towards this idea of a factory that really is having to consider future work in a different way. Because I would like us to worry now about what we can do positively to keep this factory going. In drama, you conjure the world and you are the agent for demonstrating that world. So it's essential the children do realise that the eyes of the mind feature to a very large extent in it. And I think you saw today how I insisted in the quiet sewing time and the picking of the needle and so on. It's to do with the building of the ability and the recognition by society that the eyes of the mind are terribly important, because it's through the mind's eyes we can empathise. It's through the mind's eyes we can remember. And it's through the mind's eyes we can often crystallise what a problem is.